I'm drawing mermaids all month long for the annual art challenge, Mermay. This will be my second monthly art challenge of the year after February. Links on the screen or in the description down below. So if you're into mermaids or just like art, let us begin. Now, I have done previous mermaid attempts before over the years, and I usually do the official mermaid prompts, but this year's official list wasn't really something I was vibing with, and I couldn't really find any that I wanted to use the entire month. So, like February, I decided to make my own. And just like with that challenge, I chose to do one theme throughout the entire month. Fruits! And in order to make this list, I looked up different kinds of fruits, found out there's so much more than I ever realized, picked a website with just enough of them, threw them onto a wheel, and spun. So for the first day, we got apricot. A fruit I thought I never had until I looked it up and realized that I definitely ate it thinking it was a peach and believing the whole bag were bad because there wasn't much flavor in them. Yeah, they're good. I was just fooled by the delivery guy who thought an apricot was a peach. I will never forgive nor remember who he was, only the disappointment. Anyway, since this was the first day, I tried keeping her simple, and I used these versions of apricots for her tail fins. And I gave her a little apricot to hold because, why not? Since apricots tend to usually stay in the yellow and orange range, I made sure to keep her whole color palette relatively close together. I used this reference to color pick everything, and I used this scale brush I had gotten before for her tail to save time. If I remember where I got it, I knew it was for free, but if I remember, I'll put it up. I was thinking of doing this challenge lineless instead, which is why there was a short moment of me coloring before the line art, but then decided against it because I'm not used to it, and if I'm not used to it, that's gonna take even longer. I'm on a timer, people. I cannot waste it. So I decided to keep the coloring the way I usually do, and finally, we got our first day of Mermay. What do you think? Cute, right? And now for day 2, we got dragon fruit! One of the fruits I was definitely hoping for. Let me know which fruit you guys are hoping for, or if you're doing this challenge as well, which list are you using? I would like to know. So, funny enough, I recently learned that a dragon fruit grows on cacti, specifically this one, and it's also known as pitaya, and for sending people to the bathroom, especially the yellow ones. I personally have only ever had one in my life so far because they are expensive. In fairness, they apparently take a very long time to grow, so it's not entirely surprising. 6 years?! Okay, well at least my drawing won't take that long. Since I decided to make her tails the scales part of the dragon fruit, it was just a matter of making sure it actually looked like a dragon fruit. So I relied heavily on my reference for the colors. This is one of those times where you really just put colors wherever you think they look nice in, because nature's unpredictable, and I don't want to overthink again. And to match her tail and hair, I gave her scale armor. I thought it felt pretty fitting since just looking at a dragon fruit makes you think it's going to hurt as much as the cacti it grows on. So I made sure she had sharp features, even sharp and pointy teeth, sharp nose, sharp eyes, and sharp fins. I made her main body the inside of the fruit because it broke up all of the red and pink, and obviously the inside of the fruit needs to kind of be somewhere, especially the seeds, because the seeds were important and simple to add. So once I figured out how to color all of her scales, she was done. Ta-da! She definitely bites. But no need to worry, because with day 3 we got guava. Okay, so I absolutely love guava. Guava paste on Maria cookies is one of my favorite snacks. Guava paste in general is just a really good snack. And even then, I had never seen an actual guava before until now. Super simple, so this shouldn't be too difficult, right? Yeah, I don't learn. Because for some reason, simple is just so easy to overthink. Because the line art went well, with a few minor changes to fix the pose and not make the mermaid's tail the same as the rest of the mermaids we will be making. You would think the rest would be just as easy. But then I made the decision to start with the tail fin. And it bothered me so much the entire day, I kept messing with the colors and making it way harder than it should be, since I wanted to add some texture, but it just wasn't looking right. The seeds were simple: copy and paste a layer, move it a little down, make them a little bigger, multiply, erase, boom, seeds. But I just kept struggling with that fin. Eventually I figured something out in the end. I kind of lowered the seeds a little bit more so they don't just look like they're popping out of the fin, so that at least it looks like it works together. I skipped adding the dragon fruit in the last one, but I did add a guava this time. I wanted to show that guava fruits sometimes have these little grabby sort of looking things at the top, and surprisingly that part isn't what is attached to the tree. It looks like it's the butt of the fruit. But hey, I don't grow guava, so what do I know? I have to explain why I gave the same thing to the top of her head somehow, right? Other than the tail fin, everything else went pretty well. Honestly, coloring the hair really helped me figure out the tail fin so I wouldn't be constantly annoyed by it. And with that, we have day 3. That tail fin haunts me. But now with day 4, we got apple. At first I didn't really think much once I got this one until I started sketching. I don't know what happened, but I somehow entered a flow state the entire time I was working on this one. From start to finish, it was just super fun to do. I wanted everyone to know that she was in fact an apple mermaid. So of course I gave her an apple bob, the apple of my eyes, and peeled apple skins as her fins, as well as apple slices for her tail fins. How can she scream more apple than now? Seeds. All the seeds. So yeah, this one definitely made me forget what time it was because I was so locked in. I did have some trouble deciding on the color of the apple and ultimately just decided to make her red with a little bit of green. I did debate on adding an apple somewhere, but I think she's apple enough. I decided to make her hair look like an apple in the reference I used and made sure to keep her as shiny as possible. Aside from maybe messing with the colors a lot, everything else went pretty smooth. The scales brush came back, and with that, we have day 4. I think she's going to be very hard to beat, but we got 27 days to go! So for now, day 5. We got pineapple! I've never tried the actual thing before, but I definitely played a game called Pineapple on Pizza, and that was interesting. So how could I not try and do the pineapple justice? Pineapple has always kind of been hit or miss for me, since I don't mind it when it's sweet, but it always feels like it's fighting me. Which, depending on who you ask, it's very true. Just not exactly. Honestly, if you look up why pineapple stings, you'll probably see that the pineapple just has something called bromelain, which is the reason why it seems to hurt. So aside from the already spiky exterior, you also have to be careful of the spiky enzymes inside. It's not dangerous, obviously. Plenty of people eat it every day, just the more you know. Honestly, I remember learning the word enzymes for the first time from someone who learned about this and was spreading the word. Because everyone wants to feel smart, and what better way to feel smart than to know something most don't. Of course, everyone eventually learned about it, and now bragging rights were officially lost. But pineapples still hurt unless you cook them. So with that lesson out of the way, we now go to this drawing. That took me way too long to finish. It wasn't even because it was difficult, per se, but because of lines. Lines that make a pattern of overlapping not exactly circles or squares, but of shapes that make up the outside of a pineapple. I don't even want to remember how long this whole drawing took me because it reminded me why I put a time limit on myself before. Of course, part of the time was because I was trying to decide how to make the pattern because I didn't want to do the usual way most of us draw cartoon pineapples. So I tried a new way, didn't like it, then changed back to how I made it in my second sketch. And even then, this part was still another reason I took so long because I had to color all separate circle, square-ish shapes. But aside from that, everything was much faster. The hair didn't even take me long, and totally not because I was going to be late if I didn't finish. Don't mention the rings because they were a lot and a little last minute, but I think they still work. I think I made it good. Anyway, here's day 5. Yay! Moving on to day 6, we got Clementine. Aside from my favorite Walking Dead character, clementines are yet another fruit that looks like an orange, if that wasn't any more obvious. Because the list I found for the fruit wheel had 3 that looked exactly the same. Clementine, tangerine, and orange. Stay tuned to see if I get either of those. Clementine is definitely one of those fruits you have most likely seen, but either thought it was an orange, or you ate a tangerine and thought it was a clementine, because they're much smaller. Or a lot of possibilities of eating the wrong ones because a good amount of fruits just look alike. Who would have thought? Nature just copies and pastes, apparently. So to avoid making this mermaid look like my possible tangerine or orange mermaids, I made her a different kind of mermaid. Not really based off of anything, just not so woman. And I decided to make her green like the leaves instead of the inside of a clementine, because when I made the sketch, I found a reference that showed a clementine with its leaves looking like a thin person with its arms out, like the top of her head. If I find the picture, I'll put it up, but at least you can see the top of her head and know what I'm talking about. I made her tail fins little slices because I thought it would look nice. Just like the apple, I made the peels part of her clothing, and made her have a little clementine hat hair. Scales brush came back, of course, and after putting some final touches, she is done. a sweet little mermaid who's as small as a clementine. I learned my lessons from the previous days to not overthink, but we'll see how long that lesson stays. And now, on to day 7. We got pomegranate, a very well known and loved, especially by me, fruit. Of course, I mostly drink the juice since eating the seeds seems to be a good snack, but I'm not a fan of eating them. I did try opening one up before and it was messy. But I'm pretty sure anyone who's tried it once knows how much of a horror scene you can make. It's fun. And fun fact, I learned my grandma once bought a pomegranate, but she had never had one before, so when she saw just seeds, she thought she got a bad one and couldn't figure out how to get the seeds out anyway, so she just threw the whole thing away. She regrets it to this day because she literally learned about it the day after she threw them away, and probably because I looked like I died a little inside when she told me. She enjoys the juice more now. So aside from that horrible story, back to the drawing. This is another I didn't change much from the original sketch. Just like with all of my drawings at this stage, I just made sure her anatomy was better, especially with her crown from the not so grabby part of the pomegranate fruit. I decided to make it a crown since I always thought they looked like little crowns and it used to remind me of the Red Queen from Alice in Wonderland. At least I always thought she would love pomegranates. I know they have a whole connection with Hades and Persephone, but who doesn't know that? If you didn't, well, now you do. I decided to texture in the seeds of the pomegranate to both save time and not make them all look the same as the ones she's holding. I basically thought of making her the type of mermaid who carries her offspring on her until they're old enough to hatch and swim with her like a school of fish, before they grow old enough to separate and start their own school of fish. Other than that, it was all about making sure none of the colors bled too much into one another and that they actually look like seeds. I used the same method I used from the apple for her pomegranate hair, and after all that, she is done. Witness a touching family moment. And for the last day of this video, day 8, we got honeydew. One I was definitely not going to complicate at all. Now, honeydew is definitely one of those fruits I only eat because it was with other melons, so I don't remember how they taste too well, but I think I like them more than cantaloupe. I also remember being little and seeing a honeydew for the first time, and because I couldn't eat it, because I was too young to hold a knife, I decided to treat it like a ball and just throw it up in the air. You know, how children do. Did I break it? No. Did I put it down because I missed and dropped it on the ground to a loud thud that almost hit my foot? Absolutely. But at least I didn't ruin the food, and that's all that matters. So for this drawing, I kept most of it the same, just made it more clear so I could do the liner as easily as possible, with a little trouble with the hands, of course. And I left the texture of the melon to the coloring phase yet again. And since the honeydew's colors are mostly green with a little bit of yellow, I decided to use the slices as a way to make the design more lively, with an emphasis on yellow. And I did miss it in the resketch, but I remembered later in the line art phase that I gave her a necklace out of the honeydew seeds. Thankfully I remembered before I started coloring, but it wouldn't have been a difficult thing to fix. The bigger issue would have been if I completely forgot about it until after I finished the whole drawing. Because it's always after you finish. So, thankfully avoiding all of that, coloring wasn't very difficult and I wasn't allowing myself to overthink on how to do the melon texture, so I continued coloring how I usually do, and then scribbled. I scribbled like a maniac the whole time and used the gradients to help. It all looked nice enough to not bother me into overthinking again. Even the seeds texture method was from the previous days. And once all the textures are done, she was finished. A lovable and lively mermaid. And now here are all the first week of Mermay completed. We did it. Well, I did it. I hope if you guys are participating, please let me know. 1 video down, 3 more to go. So I hope you guys are enjoying this as much as I am, and I hope you look forward to all of my videos, or at least the rest of the days of Mermay. Let me know which ones were your favorites. I think mine so far are apple and honeydew. And like, comment, and subscribe for more. Check out my shop, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.